Welcome to High Cap Fridays, where information becomes action and action expands capacity. Knowing this stuff is great, but putting it into practice, that's what actually changes things. I'm Michelle Grosser, trial attorney turned nervous system strategist, and every Friday here on High Capacity, I'm going to give you one nervous system tool and one high cap move to take into the week ahead. Something really short, really practical, and designed to be acted on. Let's jump in. Hey, welcome to our High Cap Friday episode. We're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to go a little bit deeper on Tuesday's episode about the control loop. And I've really been this month, especially with our alumni community, going into how perfectionism and control are weaving themselves into so much of our day-to-day. And how is it showing up as overfunctioning? How is it showing up as underfunctioning? And I've been thinking a lot about this season of life when Jeff and I were new parents and we had a newborn, and then I got pregnant again. So we had Ashton 16 months after we had Amory. So we had two babies. And there was just a lot of adjustment there. And I remember during that time, and probably for the next few years, just like so much resentment building up towards Jeff, which was kind of scary for me because we had always had such an easy relationship. Like I remember dating and then getting married, and like we're just having so much fun and hearing people talk about like, oh, marriage is hard, marriage is a lot of work. And I was like, I don't really know what they're talking about. Like this seems super fun and easy. Like I'm in school, I'm working as a bartender, Jeff's working in restaurant and hotel management, and like, you know, we're just living the life of early 20 somethings. And then we were married 8 years and we were together 11 before we had our first daughter. And then we became parents, and I was like, oh, this is what everyone was talking about when they said marriage was hard, right? And that was like 10 years ago now. But man, there was just so many little things that parenting and motherhood and new parenting brought up in me that just like came through as resentment. And at that time, I really hadn't done any personal, professional development kind of stuff, really was not aware of a lot of my paradigms and poor boundaries and poor communication and all of these things. So like I had all these expectations for Jeff and how he would show up as a husband and a dad in that season. But I wasn't really even aware that I had those expectations, and I certainly didn't communicate them to him. So then I got super frustrated when I thought he wasn't helping enough, but like I wasn't really communicating what enough would be or asking for more help, right? I got resentful that, you know, in my mind, he wasn't doing things the right way because I'm the one who had read all of the parenting books and baby books and all that stuff. And like, obviously in my mind, I knew how things needed to be done. You know, and there was just so much resentment, and I carried so much of all of like the mental load and the logistics and the day-to-day management of the household and the babies. And I was exhausted, right? As most parents in that postpartum haze are. But then I got frustrated, and I was getting kind of just furious, quietly furious about it. And then at some point I had to get really honest with myself because I was trying to do all the things, right? Like I actually wanted to handle everything and micromanage everything. And if that's how I was going to show up, and if Jeff tried to do something or have an opinion or like input in some way, but if he didn't do it exactly how I thought or how I read or how the expert said or whatever, like God bless him. Then I'd just redo it, or I would just be like, I'll just handle it. Don't even worry about it. And if something needed to be done, I didn't even really ask him or wait for him to step up. I just did it. I just took it over because the waiting felt uncomfortable and uncertain. And what if he just didn't do it and then it didn't happen? And what I realize now looking back, right, having just grown and healed so much and our marriage is just so much healthier, is that I was so complicit in the exact dynamic that was causing the resentment I was experiencing. And I had overfunctioned so completely and consistently that there was really no room for him in this little like dynamic that we had, this little dysfunctional dynamic. Because every signal I was sending without meaning to, right? I didn't realize I was doing this, was like, I've got this. I don't need you. I'll handle it. And eventually the system adjusted. Why wouldn't it? Right? So he stepped back and I took on more. And then I resented him more. And then he stepped back further. And it was this whole seesaw. And when I finally loosened the grip and really released, not just like pretended to release and then hovering and micromanaging, when I was like, no, this ain't it. And started doing my own work and regulating my nervous system enough that I could release stuff and not be in a panic about it. He stepped up, right? That dynamic is not an issue in our marriage anymore. There's other things that we're still working through, right? But like this thing of like who does what and I do more and you don't do this and whatever, like that's just not an issue in our marriage anymore. Thank God. But it required me to actually see my own role in creating it first. So if you caught Tuesday's episode on the control loop, we talked about how overfunctioning is one of the three parts or three ways in which we can start to reach for control when our nervous system perceives any sort of threat. So what I want to do today is I want to just, as your high cap move of the week, let's just take a look at what overfunctioning does to the people around us, because there's an effect, right? There's like a consequence to all the decisions and actions that we take. And I think this is a piece that lands differently once we start to see it. So it's called the seesaw dynamic, but the idea is that in any relationship, your consistent overfunctioning, i.e. doing all the things for all the people, is going to create the conditions for someone else's underfunctioning, okay? And it's not like, regardless of what's going through your mind in the moment, and no shame in that because I've been there and I get it, I'm just calling it out. It's not because they're lazy, even though we might perceive it that way. It's not because they don't care, but it's because the system that has just come to be by default, right, assigned that function to them. So there's a person who always does it, and then there's a person who doesn't have to do it. And they stopped expecting it from them because you're doing it. So your overfunctioning is sending a signal that lands probably below everyone's conscious awareness that, hey, this is covered. No one else has to worry about it, right? There's always just toilet paper every time the roll runs out. There's always, fresh socks when it's like we're running low. There's always snacks in the pantry and healthy food in the fridge, and the fruit bowl is always full, and there's always toothpaste. Like I can tell, I just have this spidey sense when you're getting to the end of that toothpaste tube and magically, voila, there's a new one, right? And it happens over time. And I think what happens is it's like a slow drip of like the other people. And this could be your kid, this could be extended family, this could be people that you work with. They start to stop. They stop offering to step up and handle and manage and do these things. They stop initiating, they stop stepping up. And it's not because they're lazy or incapable or like they have it out for you, but it's because the seesaw has tipped and the system is in this equilibrium, and it's not a healthy one, but it is an equilibrium. One side's going up and the other side goes down, right? And then the person at the top of this seesaw, the one holding the whole thing up, starts to resent the person at the bottom for not carrying their weight, okay? But they're the one that's holding the seesaw up. Like I was the one that was causing most of this resentment I was experiencing early in my postpartum phase of my marriage. And I think it shows up often in marriages. I hear about it from most of the women that I work with. I know it shows up in parenting, right? Kids who never learn to tolerate discomfort or handle things independently because a parent or someone always like kind of swoops in to save them or do it for them. It obviously shows up in work relationships. If you're the one who's like always problem solving and always has the answer before anyone else can try to figure stuff out. Everywhere that there's a relationship, there's a potential seesaw. And resentment is almost always the sign that it's tipping, right? Because every place that resentment lives, I think is a place for us to get really curious about, not necessarily as a feeling to like push through the resentment or go fix the resentment, but it's like, I think it's a signal. It's a little flag waving like, hey, there's something going on here that we need to take a look at, because either there's a request that's not being made, a need that's not being met, a boundary that's not being set. Like there's something going on here when we start to experience resentment. There's so much data there. And I think I want to come back and do more on that in a future episode. So if that's something that you guys want to hear about, shoot me an email or send me a DM on Instagram, because I would love to hear that. And then I can create the content you guys are wanting. But here's your high cap move of the week, okay? So it's a little two-parter, but it can be done just this week because we're just going to get this ball rolling. So part one is you're going to identify a seesaw area in your life, okay? So where in your life are you over-functioning in a way that might be creating these like ideal conditions for someone else to underfunction? So get real with yourself, or even start to take an inventory, or just notice as you go throughout the day. What are the things that you are doing, or you are managing, or you are just fixing or handling or ordering or taking care of, because it's easier for you to do it and you've always done it. But if you're honest and sit there, like it actually doesn't belong to you. Like maybe it's not your responsibility to make all of the plans for the kids all summer long. Or maybe it's not actually your sole responsibility to plan and cook every meal. Or maybe it's not your sole responsibility to entertain the kids, or to order stuff, or to make your husband's dentist appointments. Like whatever it is, right? What could actually belong to someone else? And maybe you're not delegating it because you don't fully trust that the thing is going to get done right without you. Okay. So just kind of an inventory a little bit as you go through your day the next week or so. What are you holding in your marriage that might not be yours? With your kids, if that's going on with your team at work, take a look there. But there's probably somewhere in your life that there's this seesaw tipping right now. Take a look at it and start to identify it. Okay. I think just naming it and starting to see that can be really significant, because the seesaw so often exists because it's running on invisibility. Like your kids probably don't know half of the stuff that you're doing for them, right? Your partner might not know all of the things that you're doing. So sometimes when it's all running invisible, like it's always been, you're just doing this stuff on autopilot, it has a grip on us. But once we start to see these things, and they're no longer invisible, and we can make them visible to others, I think it can kind of lose some of its automatic grip, if you will. So that's the first part. Start to identify where you're over functioning. And then part two, and this is, the integration piece. This is actually doing the work that's going to make a difference. I want you to pick just one thing, okay? Not 7 things. You're not overhauling. You're not like having a meltdown and being like, I'm not doing any of this stuff anymore. You guys got to pick it up. Like, just choose one thing. What's one thing that you have been doing, managing, planning, holding, all of it, and explicitly hand it off, okay? Not passive aggressively, not with like a 32-step micromanaging checklist, and then you're like continuing to nag and follow up on it. Not that, right? Not letting someone else do it and then going behind them and redoing it, okay? I'm talking about actually releasing it. If your kids are going to start doing their own laundry, let them do their own laundry. If your kids are going to start making their own beds or packing their own lunches, how can you let them do that where you're not coming behind them and just like redoing all this stuff, right? Same thing at work, same thing in your marriage. Actually releasing it and creating the space for someone else to step in, okay? That's not going to be uncomfortable. The harder part, the even more uncomfortable part, is going to resist the urge to fill this new little space you've created, right? Back up when X person doesn't do the thing immediately. They don't do it exactly how you would have done it. They don't do it on your timetable. They take longer than you would have. There's going to be such an urge in you to remind and check in and manage and double check. Can you resist that? Can you resist that, right? If that's going to be really hard for you to do, choose something low stakes, you guys. Whether the bed is made perfectly the way you make it or not, it really has no impact on anyone's anything, okay? So if that's going to be really hard for you, choose something super low stakes, and then you can work up from there as trust grows. But that gap, that uncomfortable little stretch you're going to experience between releasing the thing and then the other person stepping up to actually get it done, that's the control loop asking you to like, hey, take it back, right? That discomfort is your nervous system reading the uncertainty like, hey, this might not go well. This might, there might be some problems here. And then you wanting to reach for that old pattern, that familiar control of just doing it yourself. And I want to just encourage and invite you here, hold that gap. Allow yourself to sit in that discomfort. Let it be messy. Let it not be done perfectly. Let it take longer. Because every time you do that, guy, there's an ROI on this. Okay? This is an investment. So yeah, maybe it's like, your kids, maybe your 6-year-old's bed doesn't look much different when they made it than before they made it. But I bet you if you let them work on making their bed every day for a week, you're going to see a lot more progress next time, right? And who cares if the bed has like perfect corners and the sheets are in perfectly and the pillows or whatever, like, you're helping them build a muscle of getting in the habit of doing these like daily routine hygiene things and chipping in and being part of the system instead of them not having to worry about any of this stuff because someone comes behind them and by the time they go to bed at night, their room looks perfect and they don't really understand what it took to get it that way, okay? All right, so that's your high cat move of the week. Identify one seesaw, one area in your life where you're overfunctioning and it's causing someone else to underfunction. And then I want you to actually take action on that and release one of those things back to its original rightful owner. All right. I would love to hear how this goes. I think this is going to be so good. So keep me posted. I love y'all so much. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening today. If you haven't taken the What's Your Capacity Pattern quiz yet, it tells you which of the 5 capacity patterns is driving your exhaustion, your reactions, and your stress. So you know exactly where to focus your energy first. It's free. It takes 2 or 3 minutes. The link is in the show notes. And then come back on Tuesday for a full episode where we go deeper on the nervous system science and the tools behind everything we've been building. I'll see you on Tuesday.